Hare Krishna. So, very warm welcome to this evening's Bhagavad Gita class. We'll have a short kirtan right now. You can either sit in meditation or try to follow. We generally do it in a call and response fashion. I'll do the calling and you can do the responding. It's a very simple song. It's called Jai Radha Madhav. So, yeah. And after 5 minutes of kirtan, we'll do some discussion on this famous verse from Bhagavad Gita. This is from the second chapter. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Grantha Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. So, a very warm welcome again to you all to this Bhagavad Gita class. Somehow, during the Kirtan, I was smiling because last time when I was expecting people to be there in the audience, not a single person was sitting in front of me. And I had done the preparation accordingly. Today when I didn't expect anyone, there are people. So, anyways. So today's verse is Bhagavad Gita 2.55. It's there on the screen. So I'll just be reciting the Sanskrit ones, and then we'll go through the translation and Srila Prabhupada's purport. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parthamanogatan Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sita Pragyastadocyate. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Purport. The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great kings, whereas A person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualifications because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So we'll be reciting some prayers. The devotees can participate, and then we'll have some discussion. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitansha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Bhopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patita Nama Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. Hare Krishna. So this is a very wonderful verse from Bhagavad Gita. So in today's verse, I'll be focusing on 4 terms primarily. One is the last statement, Sthita Pragya Tada Uchyate. The second one is the first statement, Prajahati Yada Kaman. The third one is Atmani Evatmana, Atmanyevatmana. And the fourth one is Tushtaha. So the first one, Sthita Pragyas Taduchyate. Krishna is saying such a person is said to be transcendentally situated. Such a person is called Sthita Pragya. Such a person is called fixed up in Krishna consciousness. So why is Krishna speaking like this? There must be some corresponding question to this, right? So yes, in the previous verse, text 54, Arjuna, he goes on to ask, Sthita Pragyasya ka bhasha. My dear Krishna, what are the characteristics of a person who is in elevated consciousness, who is transcendentally situated? So as a reply, Krishna speaks a series of verses, and at least in the beginning, starting few verses, this one-to-one matching can be done. Like this text 55, it ends with Sita pragyastadochyate. Text 56. It ends with Siddhadhira muniruchyate. So something similar. This one-to-one corresponding question and answer. This can be found at least in the beginning few verses. Now, next. Prajahati yada kaman. The term prajahati, it means to give up, to reject, to not care for. What is Krishna asking Arjuna to reject? Krishna is telling Arjuna, what you need to give up is kaman. The term kama refers to desires, a certain set of desires. So, what kind of desires is Krishna asking Arjuna to give up or reject? That is answered in the next line, second line. Sarvan Partha Manogatan. O Partha. Partha is the name of Krishna, which he got from being the son of Mother Kunti, Queen Kunti. She had a name Pritha, so therefore, being the son of Pritha, he got the name Partha. So Krishna is telling, O Partha, give up those desires which are born of mental concoction, which are born out of your mind, which are directed towards sense pleasure. Mind generally proposes enjoyment of the senses, or in other terms, gratification of the senses. So mind generally proposes pleasure on the material plane. This pleasure, the material pleasure or material desires, can operate on three levels. One is said to be the physical level or the physical pleasure. Above that is the mental pleasure, and above that is the intellectual pleasure. When I say physical pleasure, I mean the pleasure which we derive when we see something nice. By doing so, we give some pleasure to our eyes. Our eyesight gets some pleasure. When we eat something nice, our taste buds, our tongue gets some pleasure. When we touch something nice, our skin becomes happy. Our skin gets pleasure. So this is all of these pleasures, they fall under the category of physical pleasures. Above that is mental pleasure, the pleasure on the emotional plane. When we achieve something, we feel happy. When we have some emotional connection with someone, we feel happy. So this is when we have some nostalgia, we might feel some happiness. So all of this is on the mental plane. Then above this is intellectual pleasure. Intellectual pleasure comes when we solve some complex problem, when we discover something new. The scientists, they are very fond of this intellectual pleasure. APJ Abdul Kalam, he was a scientist. He was once asked, why did he never marry? He was celibate lifelong. So he was once asked, why you chose not to marry? He said, it was not a matter of choice. When I was young, I entered the laboratory. When I came out, all my hair had turned white. So I forgot that this pleasure of marriage also exists in this world. So I was so absorbed in the lab. So why? Because intellectual pleasure is higher than sex pleasure. Sex pleasure is on the physical plane, right? So yes, this is higher than the previous two pleasures which we discussed. And I think Isaac Newton also, he was also celibate lifelong, never married. So yeah, but still, all three of these, at the end of the day, they are on the material plane. They are material pleasures. So therefore, they cannot give satisfaction to the soul, to the spirit soul. In the beginning of this chapter, Krishna has informed Arjuna that our true identity is that we are spirit soul. So, because this cannot give us happiness, ultimate happiness, Krishna is asking us to reject this. Okay, if this needs to be rejected, then what do we need to accept? That is what is mentioned in the third line. Atmani eva atmana. The second atmana, it refers to the spirit soul. So Krishna is telling that instead of seeking pleasure outside, turn inward. O Arjuna, seek pleasure within. Why am I using this vague term? Why am I not involving Krishna over here? Because Krishna himself has not introduced himself till now. Till now, the concept of soul has been introduced. Krishna has not established the connection of soul with himself till now. So therefore, Krishna is telling that seek pleasure within, seek pleasure on the spiritual plane. And yes, one thing is where we seek pleasure depends a lot on our conception of life also. If somebody thinks that I am this body, I am nothing but a product of matter, I am this body made up of material elements, what he'll do, what he or she, what such a person will do, he or she will simply search for pleasure in matter, because that's their conception of life, right? Such a person is not expected to generally go to temple and sit down and meditate and chant, because such a conception is alien to him, right? On the other hand, if somebody is a spiritualist, what he'll do, he'll know that there is something beyond this. Okay, let's forget about spiritualists. Let's take a very crude example. Somebody, if he's a debauchee, and if such a person goes to a forest, within the forest, what he'll look for? He'll look for different tourists which are there. Why? Because he's a debauchee, the only thing which is running through his head is sex pleasure. So he'll see, okay, with whom can I mate, who can be a good partner, this, that, right? Because he doesn't know anything more than that. But on the other hand, if somebody is very fond of wildlife, somebody is very fond of flora and fauna, he'll go and go to the same forest, the very same forest, but he'll be totally unconcerned with the tourists hanging around. He'll be concerned with, okay, what new kind of flowers I can discover over here, what new wildlife can be found. Okay, these animals also exist, I never knew that. So this will be his focus. He'll know that there's a lot more to life than sex pleasure. All right? So similarly, where we find pleasure is very strongly linked to our conception of life. So we as spiritual practitioners, as in Sanskrit we use the term sadhaka, we as sadhakas might consider ourselves as, we may call ourselves spiritualists. But if at the end of the day we seek pleasure in matter, if we seek pleasure in good food, in movies, this, that, then in the heart of hearts we are materialists, we are not spiritualists. On the other hand, if someone, he is not aware of spirituality, but he is a genuine seeker of spiritual upliftment, he is, just because of lack of guidance, he could never come in touch with the spiritual path, even though right now he may be on the spiritual plane, but as soon as he or she will come in contact with devotees, they'll pick it up very quickly, very fast, right? And we do see such people, right, who came to Krishna consciousness after us. After we had joined, several years later, they joined the movement, but they made very rapid progress. Why? Because their conception of life was beyond matter. So, yeah, that's one thing. And one thing to be noted here is what Krishna is asking to reject here is not the action. Krishna is asking to reject the desires, not the action. Just like the famous verse from Bhagavad Gita, 2.47, Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Sometimes people think here Krishna is telling that we should reject the results. No, results are not to be rejected. If Krishna had to propose this, if Krishna had to propose rejection of results, 6 verses before that, 2.41, Krishna would not have said Vyavasayatmika buddhir. In this verse, Krishna is telling that, oh Arjuna, please have single-pointed attention. Please be focused towards the goal. Please be purpose-driven. So if that would have been the idea of Krishna to reject result, Krishna would not be asking Arjuna 6 verses earlier to be focused towards a goal. No, he's telling instead, Bahu Shakha Ananta Achyuta, don't be Bahu Shakha, don't be many branched. Buddhayo avyavasai nam. If you are many branched, you will be driven by feelings. You will be distracted. So results are not to be rejected. Attachment to results, that is to be rejected. That is to be given up. If we are putting in endeavor towards something, it is natural to expect results. But what Krishna is telling is, be attached to the endeavor, not to the results. If the results don't go your way, don't become disturbed. That is Krishna's idea. So similarly here, Krishna is telling that actions are not to be rejected. If we start rejecting the actions, then we'll not be able to survive. We talked about material pleasure, right? If I eat something nice, my senses, my taste buds, they become happy. They get pleasure. Happy is not the right term. They get pleasure. So what does that mean? Should I stop eating? No, because action is not to be rejected. The desire, that is to be rejected. Now, the question comes, which desires? Do we need to reject all the desires? No, not all desires need to be rejected. Only those desires which are born of sense gratification, which are targeted towards sense enjoyment, they are to be rejected. The desires which operate on the mundane plane, the desires born of mental concoction, they are to be rejected. And these desires, they exist because our mind is full of conditionings, right? When I use the term conditionings, I mean lust, anger, greed, false pride, envy, illusion. This is what I mean. So because the mind is full of these conditionings, what happens? This leads to, this is the source of bondage, this is the source of illusion. This is why we have material desires. So if somebody is operating on the spiritual plane, he'll not have all these desires. He will have desires just like Srila Prabhupada. He had desires in the spiritual world, must be having, but he also had desires in this world. For example, he had a desire that book distribution should expand. He had a desire that temples, we should open temples, right? So there are desires in this world. So having a desire is not wrong. The purification of desires, that is being asked here. So Srila Prabhupada, his desires were an expression of his love towards Krishna. So his desires were related to matter, but that matter was not used for a material purpose. That matter was used for a spiritual purpose, right? Sorry, I think I used the wrong term, I don't know. Okay, anyways. No, okay, his desires were related to matter, but in spite of being related to matter, they were not on the material plane, they were on the spiritual plane. Okay. So, and after reading such sections, sometimes people become fearful Why? Because they think, oh, I am being asked to give up desires. If I give up all material desires, okay, Prabhuji, you are asking us to give up material desires, right? But I have a problem with that also. If you are saying that give up all material desires, then how will I be happy? I need some happiness, right? So the problem with this reasoning is that we think that desires are a way to happiness, right? The idea behind this reasoning, if somebody is saying, please don't ask me to give up desires, because if I give up desires, I'll not be able to become happy. If somebody is putting forward this argument, it means that person has a perception that desires are the way to happiness. But no. Often, what happens is we desire the undesirable. Very often, we desire those things which are not to be desired. And that is the cause of frustration. That is the cause of misery. That is the cause of resentment. Right? So, what we are actually doing is, by desiring the undesirable, we end up entangling ourselves more and more in this world. There can be desires which can uplift us. There can be desires which can unentangle us. But there can also be desires which can entangle us. So, this idea that giving up of desires, giving up of material desires, will make me bereft of happiness. No, that's not correct. We should be very careful with what desires are to be kept with us, which desires are to be maintained, and which desires need to be passed. So, what we need to do is, we need to seek higher fulfillment. We need to go beyond material desires, and that is what Krishna is answering here, that the way to do that is go inwards, right? Instead of seeking pleasure externally, please reject that instead of seeking pleasure in the outside world, turn inwards, because when we turn inwards, we'll understand that we are spirit soul, and then we'll shift the plane altogether at which we are seeking pleasure. So, when Krishna, in the beginning of this chapter, introduced the characteristics of the spirit soul, Krishna is telling the soul is Satchid Anand. Sat means eternal. The soul is eternal. It is, what do we say? How do you define eternal? Everlasting. So, Krishna is telling soul is fireproof, soul is waterproof, soul is bulletproof, but at the same time, soul is time-proof. So, it's eternal. Okay, there's no beginning. You cannot trace back that time when the soul was created. So that is Sat. Then comes Chit. Chit means full of knowledge, and Anand. Anand means full of bliss. So just this awareness that, oh, I am spirit soul, I am Satchid Anand, just this awareness gives us some pleasure, because Shri Shri Radha Gokulanand ki, Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So just this simple awareness that I am something beyond this world, I am Satchid Anand, this gives happiness. And when that connection of that spirit soul is established with Krishna, when we get to know that I am a part and parcel of Krishna, and when we act on that platform, that can give us supreme happiness. So yeah, that was mostly about my third point. Then my last point is about the word tushtaha. So Krishna is telling that practice satisfaction. It is surprising how many times Krishna has emphasized upon this point, upon this word tushtaha or santushtaha in Bhagavad Gita. Again and again, Krishna drives this point home. In the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Yadrichhalava santushto dvandvati tave matsaraha Samaha siddhao siddhau cha kritvapi na nibadyate. Krishna is telling, yadricha labha santushto. With whatever labh, whatever gain you are getting, be santushtaha. Be yadricha labha santushto. Be satisfied with that, O Arjuna. So this is the 4th chapter. Then in the 6th chapter, Krishna says, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. O Arjuna, be Triptatma, be Tripta, be satisfied. This is the 6th chapter. Then 12th chapter. Santushtaha satatam yogi yatatma drada nishchayaha. Again, very similar instruction. Be santushta. Such a devotee, such a yogi. Santushtaha satatam yogi. That spiritualist who is always satisfied, he is very dear to me. This is the 14th verse. 5 verses later, Krishna is telling, Tulya ninda sutir mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa sthiramater bhaktiman me priyo naraha. Oh Arjuna, practice satisfaction. Why? Krishna, why are you doing this? What's the need to repeat the same instruction again and again? So this is 12th chapter. Then 17th chapter. Manaha prasadaha saumyatvam maunam atma vinigraha bhava samshuddhirityeta tapo manasam uchyate. Krishna is telling, Arjuna, practice satisfaction. When I had not read Bhagavad Gita, I used to think that satisfaction is a feeling. Sometimes I'll feel satisfied. Sometimes I'll not feel satisfied. Sometimes I'll be dissatisfied. But after going through the pages of Bhagavad Gita, I understood that satisfaction is not a feeling. Rather, satisfaction is a practice. It is a habit which needs to be inculcated. It is an austerity of the mind. So, some devotees, some people will find, you put them into any type of provoking situation, they are not disturbed, right? They don't become upset. They will okay you to death, but they'll not be troubled. Why? Because they know the art of satisfaction. When I was joining the ashram, when I had signed my resignation and joined the ashram, I went to the temple president of ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Manor, Her Grace Mother Vishakha. I asked, Mataji, any instruction? So one of the things she told me that, please try to practice satisfaction. Satisfaction is a great art. And yeah, whenever I try to practice that, I can see the difference also. So yes. And in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Dayaya sarva bhuteshu santushtya yena kena va sarvendriya upashantya cha tushyati ashu janardana. If somebody wants to please Lord Janardan very quickly, ashu means quickly. If somebody wants to please Lord Krishna, if somebody wants to please Radha Gokulananda very quickly. So in this verse of 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3 shortcuts have been told. And 3 ways have been told. And one way is to practice satisfaction. Santushtya yena kenava. Somehow or the other, be satisfied. And when I say practice satisfaction, I mean that not hankering after sense gratification, basically keeping your mind under control, keeping your senses under control. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's example of 2 contradictory personalities. One was Prahlad Maharaj, the other one was Hiranyakashipu. This Hiranyakashipu, he had everything in life. He possessed every luxury that a human being could have. He had everything. The title of the 4th chapter of 7th canto is Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. Even the demigods were acting as his servants. Sa itham nirjita kabub ekarada vishayan priyan yathopajosham bhunjano Na tripyad ajitendriyaha. This guy, Hiranyakashipu, there was no corner in the entire universe which was not conquered by him. But na tripyad. At heart, he was dissatisfied because ajitendriyaha, his mind and senses were uncontrolled. And Prahlad Maharaj was totally opposite. Because his mind and senses were controlled, he was always satisfied. His own father was making an attempt to kill him. How many of us are here whose father has made an attempt to kill us? None of us, right? So, this was a troublesome situation which he had to face every single day. But still, he was peaceful. He was satisfied because the mind and senses were controlled. Krishna has dedicated one full chapter of Bhagavad Gita on this topic. The 6th chapter on mind control. So, it is important. It is something which needs to be practiced. Krishna says, Yato yato nischalati manasyanchalam asthiram tatastato niyam yetad atmanyeva vasham nayet. He is telling, oh Arjuna, yato yato nischalati. As and when your mind goes away and wanders after sense gratification, after sense enjoyment, what you should do? Bring it back. Bring it back. And it is possible. That's why Krishna is telling. Why would Krishna instruct something impossible in Bhagavad Gita? It is possible. Just like a small child, if the child is very restless, again and again goes away. What we do, what the parents do, they bring the child back and make him sit. Again tries to go away and run away. Again the parents bring him back. When this process happens multiple times, the kid also becomes frustrated. Okay, let me sit here only. Right? So this is what we need to do with the mind. And yes, so when I say we should practice satisfaction, I mean on the material plane. So it is said there are 3 things with which we should always be satisfied, and 3 things with which we should never be satisfied. So the 3 things with which we should always be satisfied is 1, the life partner or the spouse. Okay, so if we are dissatisfied with one partner, what we will do? We'll go on to search the second partner. But after some time, we'll be dissatisfied with the second partner also. Then we'll go for the third one. Then after some time, we'll be bored with the third partner also, right? And there are heavy consequences of changing partners, So, therefore, the Shastra recommend be satisfied with your partner. Second is food. Whatever food you are getting, just be content with whatever is available, And third is the wealth that you have earned, So, of course, I'm not saying that when I say this that be satisfied with wealth, I don't mean that we don't try to increase the standard of our living. No. If we want, we can do that. But along with increasing the standard of our living, we should also increase the standard of our life. Right? So, this desire for having more wealth should not be at the cost of spiritual life. That's what I mean. So these are 3 things with which we should be always satisfied. Basically, in a nutshell, on the material plane, we should try to practice satisfaction as much as possible. And there are 3 things with which we should never be satisfied. First one is charity. We should never think that I have donated enough and I have given enough to Krishna. I can put a full stop to this now. Never. Right? The more, the better. Second is learning or knowledge. So, spiritual knowledge is unlimited, and we should never think that I have become expert at Shastra, expert at scriptures. One of my seniors, when he was joining the monastery, when he was joining the temple, the ashram, he had gone to his senior for some spiritual advice, for some instructions. So one advice he got was, please take a note of the date when you join the ashram. Please note that down. And every 6 months from that date, please don't forget to join the ashram again. Means every 6 months, you have to join the ashram. Means remember, every 6 months, remind yourself that you are a neophyte. When you will do this, you will remain in a learning mode. You'll remember that we are here to learn about Krishna. The moment we think that I am a senior devotee, now I also know something, that day our advancement in spiritual life will be checked. So, first was charity, second is learning, and the third is the holy name. With the chanting of Hare Krishna, we should never become satisfied. Srila Prabhupada said we should chant minimum 16 rounds every day and take maximum 6 hours of sleep daily. But sometimes we reverse it. We think minimum 6 hours of sleep and maximum 16 rounds. But no, that's not the case, right? So, yeah, that was mostly it from me. Sorry, I was not so well prepared. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Yes, boss. Yeah. Yeah, I came across a very wonderful verse. I also had this question for a very long time, but recently I came across a very wonderful verse from the 52nd chapter of 10th canto, and I found this to be a very practical definition of satisfaction for myself. So, this is the chapter in which Queen Rukmini or Princess Rukmini sends a love letter to Krishna through a Brahmana. And it is said this is the only love letter which a brahmachari or brahmacharini can read. You know, so interesting. I have tried to memorize a few verses from this. What the first verse? Shrutva gunan bhuvana sundara shrinavam te. Very wonderful, you know. So I think 7 or 8 verses are there. So when Krishna meets that Brahmana, when that Brahmana ends up in the palace of Krishna, so Krishna speaks this verse. So this is an instruction from Krishna on satisfaction. Santushto yarhi varteta brahmano yena kenachit ahiyamanaha swadharmat sa yasyakhila kamadhuk. Krishna is saying, when a Brahmana is satisfied with whatever comes in his way, with whatever comes his way, and does not fall away from his religious duties, those very religious principles become his desire cow, fulfilling all his wishes. So, one of the reflections of mine from this verse was, we can practice satisfaction by abiding by our religious duties. So the things which ought to be done, never give them up, even if the times are tough, even if the situations are provoking, like that. So if we are supposed to basically get the basics right, that's what I would say. So this is one definition. Another, there can be more reflections on this, what actually is meant by satisfaction. Anyone has any thoughts, please feel free to share. All right. Any other question? Last question. Arjunpu, you want to share anything? All right. Granthra. All right. Thank you. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande. We'll have Aarti ceremony, the evening Gaur Aarti in 8 minutes. So at 7 o'clock, please be here. Hare Krishna.